Hi, it's Bobby from Fifth Avenue Cakes, and I'm here with a inspired Samantha Bewitched witch. So I'm going to show you how I made her. I am a huge Elizabeth Montgomery fan, so this is what I thought would be perfect for Halloween. Okay, so I've sketched in, as you know that I like to, a little bit of how her dress is going to look. We're going to be outside the line, so I'm not really worried about neatness so much. You are going to want to fill 4 bags. They're going to look like this. I'm using a tip saver and a bag clip. And you're going to want to fill them with about 15-second consistency icing, which we're going to top coat. So the first thing we're going to top coat is her face. And I'm doing this with a little bit of with a little bit of Sugar Flare Paprika or Flesh Tone, and then I went and mixed just a tiny bit of caramel because I thought it was too peachy. So we're just going to top coat this in. You want to be sure to cover up your tip when you're done, because you will be needing it again, the color. So I'm going to leave the neck alone for now. I want it to look a little bit separated, and the only way I can do that is if this crusts for about 5 minutes. So I'm going to go on and do something else at this point. And also I want to put a little hair on her face, even though Elizabeth Montgomery's hair always seemed to be pulled back. I found the cookie looked better. She had a little bit of hair in her face. So I added my own little touch. It's inspired, so just go with that. So we're going to go ahead and do the black outline of her cape with 15-second consistency. And I make my black by using black, and then I add a little bit of violet and a little bit of green. I found if you just put black in, you end up with this weird gray color that I don't particularly like. I want the sleeve to run into her cape, and you want to keep your pressure fairly light. This is a top coat consistency, so you don't want it running around all over your cookie. So very light pressure, keeping it even. At the moment I'm just outlining the cape. Be sure not to fill in that tiny little hole that makes the sleeve look like the sleeve. When we go to add in the cuff, as you saw in the finished cookie, it makes a huge difference. You can add a little more pressure when you're filling in your top coating. Just keep it going. Some interesting facts about Bewitched as I was looking around for pictures of her in her witch's outfit. Because of the time and the way the censorship went, she very rarely wore her black witch's outfit, and it changed from the beginning of when they started filming to the last few years it was on. In the beginning she wore it with a witch's hat and a cute little cape. Then she started wearing, almost as the 60s took fold, this little leotard outfit. And then it went from there to when she did the Salem witch trial episode to a veil and a black cape. I chose because I'm going to keep this traditional to let it be just a regular cape rather than go with the veil. And you can pretty much use any cookie cutter that has a doll type of an image. And that being said, meaning like my Marie Antoinette cookie cutter would work. So we're going to add more pressure. As you can see, it's coming out a little bit faster. You wouldn't want that when you were filling in, or outlining. You want that when you're filling in. And I always get questions, is the graphite dangerous? It's not dangerous. We're not using lead. It's such a small amount of graphite. It's fine to use. Now black does bleed, so you're going to want to give that a little bit of time to crust over as well. You're going to find it bleeds into some of your colors, and that would not be fun. And whatever doesn't just kind of flow into place, you can take your scriber and put it into place. So I'm going to go ahead and put her neck in, and then I'll keep your tip clean. I'm not too concerned if that black right there bleeds into her neck because the purple's supposed to be there anyway, so it won't really make a big difference. On the neck and the face, I'm using a 2.5 PME tip. If you don't have PMEs, you could use a Tico or Wilton. And since they don't have the halves, just go to a 2. The 3 is going to come out too fast for you and give you too much trouble. Just putting that neck up to her face without smearing her face. I just want it to look like there's a differentiation between the neck and the chin. Let's see if we can get a little bit of that out because I want the purple to be there. If not, we'll just take the purple over, it'll be fine. You have about 4.5 minutes before it sets, so if you need to play with it, you can. Now I'm going to go ahead and do her hair. We should have set enough on that face to get the hair done. I'll do the outside first. And I'm using chestnut. Her hair was blonde, but blonde looks so funny because it's almost like you have to do yellow. So I went ahead and did chestnut. And the cookie that you saw, I put a little bit of cream in there. But I'm not sure if I like that or not, so I didn't want to do it with this one. But if you decide to do it, just put it in right away when you put in her hair. And I am going to go above on the face. I just want to get this in first. So at the moment she looks like she has dog ears. And I am also using a number 2.5 for the hair, so it won't come out too thick. So if you're working on more than one cookie at a time, I would go ahead and do it, like I always say, in assembly type of a method. So that way you're doing her face on all of them, and then you go and do the cape, and then you go and do the neck, and then you go and do the hair. And that way you won't have to worry about waiting for it to crust over. The other thing that's a really good idea when you're working with this kind of flooding is to put it under a desk lamp for about 10 to 15 minutes, just so that you can, I'm going to move this hair, give it a little bit of texture, just so you can get a little bit of drying in there and you don't get sunken valleys and stuff. I don't want to put in that hat yet because it will bleed onto her hair, so we'll go ahead and do the purple. And the only place we're putting in the purple, of course, is right here in the middle. I'm using a number 3 PME tip, which would be comparable to a Tico or a Wilton number 3. I just prefer these tips. And again, very light pressure when you're working in here. As you can see, I'm going up into that one neck area that I brought out to close to the black. And just follow the line. And then fill in just like you did for your black. And again, we're working with a 15-second consistency. And even though we're working with a top cutting consistency and not a flood consistency, you do want to give the black a little bit of time to set, or you'll find it bleeds in there. Now, it's not that big of a deal if it bleeds into your purple because we are going to be decorating the inside of the black cape with a cuff. But it would be a big deal if it bled onto her hair or her neck. And yes, I realize I haven't done the hands. I do the hands a little bit differently. I'm going to pressure pipe them in. So I'm waiting for that black to just really set. So we'll do our hat. And be careful not to dent your cookie with your hand. So for the hat, I'm going to go up in a triangle, and I hope my hand is not in the way. I'm going to leave a little bit of room to put that little piece of purple in there so that I can put her band on her hat after it dries. And this is going to need a good 24 hours to really set. See right here, but that'll be okay. We gave it a little bit of an air bubble, but we should be fine. Now for her hands, we're going to use soft peak consistency. I just want to make sure everything's okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to start with a bobless ball, and then just come down to the black. Bobless ball, and just come down to the black, and you can bring out a little bit of a thumb with a damp brush. If you have a little bit, I call it cellulite because she's too young for cellulite, so you want to take that away. So now that needs to dry for 24 hours. I have one ready and I'll show you how we put it together. Alright, so now we have a cookie that's dried for 24 hours. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm taking this flesh color from Sugar Flare and a tiny brush. I'm going to give her a little bit of cheeks. And I already added in a dot for her nose. Royal icing is a little bit testier when it comes to coloring, but it can be done. What I like to do, if I find that I'm having a little bit of problem like I am on this side, is use like a camera blow tool and just get rid of the extra dust. We just want to add some color so she doesn't look so pale. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in her eyebrows. And I like to hold my pinky on the top of the cookie, and I'm going to start right at where the nose is, but higher, because our eyebrows are not at our nose, but they're pretty close. So if you use the nose as a guide, and just draw a little cute little line. A little U. Nothing major. Nice little eyebrow. And this is Copy Cake's edible marker. Any of them are fine. For the eye, the same thing. I am using string consistency icing. And I'm going to just start a point and then let my string drop and release pressure. And the same thing over here. Now, this is a little bit trickier because I can't see over my arm. But I know if I hold the tip at a 90-degree angle, it should give me a nice curve. And then anything I feel like I need to fix, it needs to come down just a smidge. It's up high, and eyes don't do that. So I'm just going to take a minute and fix it and make this one match. Now black is tricky, so wherever you place it, pretty much that's where it's going to be. Now what I like to do for mouths on things like this is I just like to make a cute little heart. So I'm going to make a bobbleless ball and bring it down to a teardrop and do the same thing on the other side, but not bring it down all the way. So now we have a cute little mouth. Even that up just a smidge. Now on the other one, I made a necklace. I'm going to do the same thing on her. So I took my black. Now black is, like I said, if you're going to do this, you have to be committed to doing this. But all you're really going to do is just a teardrop and come down and release pressure, teardrop, release pressure. And the same thing from the other side. But a lot of witches wore jewelry, so I thought it'd be cute to have one. And then we're going to put a bodice in here. And that's pretty simple. We're going to start right about here. And you really want your string work, your black, to have a lot of elasticity. So check it before you start piping. Like I said, once you put in black, I mean you can, if you absolutely have to, boom, you can get a string. So I'm going to very carefully remove that piece. Of course, as I'm talking about how tricky black is, I go ahead and make that error. I'm going to connect it rather than take that black off because it does leave a mark, and I would much rather just connect it right here. You'll never know the difference. And then just keep working it down to her waist. The same as you would for a corset. And this is the fun part, so have fun. Make sure your tip is clean. I am working with a number 0. I forgot to tell you that. So this is a 0 tip. This is just a tad up, but that's fine because material sometimes, I just want to push it down just a smidge so it doesn't break. Gently, gently, gently. And then we're going to add in a little bow. So here's the middle, and what I like to do is just put a tiny dot. And I'm going to make one bow on this side. And come around the string work and come back up to my center and release pressure. And then do the same thing on the other side. And I'm working over my hand, so this becomes a little bit trickier. And release pressure, and then add in your tails. And release pressure. And release pressure. Yeah. Alright, and then I'm using soft consistency and a petal tip, which is oozing on me, so let me just clean up my tip, to make my cuff. So I don't want the frill, I just want a cuff. So I'm going to make light pressure with the thin part of my tip facing the dress. And I'm going to tuck that back under so it looks like a cuff. Remember, this is a cape, so we want to keep it looking like a cape. And the same thing on the other side. So you can see that I'm very lightly bringing it down into the back and releasing pressure. And then I'll tuck that down. And now we're going to do the same thing here. So we want our tip to face the purple. We're going to start inside the black. We just want to come in the purple just a little bit. You don't want to come in too much because that purple area, especially towards the top, is so thin. So mostly we want to keep a nice even line going up the dress. And normally with a petal tip you would not raise it like this because I did such soft consistency I could. I couldn't find another way to get, and I'm going to turn her just a tad, to get that line. I couldn't find a tip that did what I wanted, so I just made this really soft. But by making this soft, you've got to be light with that pressure and even at the same time. But it works out pretty well. And it will come down. And then if you want, there's this little area right here. Now black on black, it's not that big a deal. Don't make that big of a mess. Let me put her back so you can see again. So if you want, you can take this area right here and do the exact same thing, just to accentuate it. And stop. And because it is so soft, you are going to have to tuck it in. And you want to keep your brush fairly clean and make sure at all times to keep it damp, not wet. And the same thing here. So we'll start right here. We'll come down with light pressure. We'll follow the line that we made for our dress. And release. And then we will tuck it in. Just going to work this little piece right here. And there you go. We have, oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot about the hat. So when you go to do your hat, be careful not to smear. We could have done it first, I suppose. But we're going to put the buckle in. So with the 0 tip and our string consistency icing, we're just going to make a cute little box. And then we'll brim her hat. Make sure your tip is clean at all times. You could go with a number 1 if you wanted that brim to be a little bit thicker. I just wanted it to be a light little accent on the hat. And then you want to stop pressure when you get to the little buckle that you made inside the hat. So really we're just following the outside of the brim of the hat. And a little bit came down here, but that's okay. And there you go. Now we have Samantha Stevens. Thank you for joining me, and have a happy, happy Halloween.